it's your journey and it's the person that you become. It's not really about achieving your goal, whatever that goal is.
Welcome to Bigger Than the Hustle podcast, where I bring you real conversations with entrepreneurs on how they live their life outside of business. We deep dive into the energies, the motivations, the habits, the disciplines, and the mindsets that make them successful in their life, that in turn makes them successful in their business. Now, today I've got someone with me that I've known a long time. She's had a journey that I've always found interesting. She does a lot of things which are true to her, true to who she is, and she uses her voice in a real positive way. So I'm not going to introduce it too much more. I'm just going to introduce her. Her name is Alpa. Hello, Alpa.
Hi, Bhavik. How are you?
Yeah, not bad. How are you?
Really good.
Good. So I'm going to hand over the mic to you. If you can just give a little bit of an introduction to yourself, and then we can start the conversation.
Okay, so for those that don't know, I'm currently a business transformation and mindset expert is how I place myself. I've been doing this for about 6 years almost. I started in November 2014. And I work very closely with Bob Proctor. So I'm part of the Proctor Gallagher Institute. And for those who don't know who Bob Proctor is, you might just want to Google him, or we might even talk about him today. I don't know. It depends on how the conversation goes.
Yeah. So, you said it's sort of transformational things that coaching that you like to deal with, and you like to deal with people and having conversations. Then it's sort of the deeper conversations as opposed to sort of the high level sort of inspiration, motivation stuff. It's really moving people out of their maybe a situation they're in that maybe they don't enjoy, or maybe they just feel that there's more in them. And I think you can guide them out of that into there. So what is it that sort of moved you into this direction, to wanting to help people in this way?
It's a long story, so I'm going to cut it short.
No, it's fine. Yeah, you carry on. Whatever you feel would give an insight to the people listening, I think that'll be fine for.
Yeah, you know what? I actually fell into it, and that sounds so cliched, but it's so true that I did actually fall into this whole motivational and coaching and getting people to really see their true potential. And my background, but maybe your viewers and listeners may not, is radio. Yeah. And I've been a radio presenter for about 25 years. Other than that, I was holding down 2 jobs. So I also used to work for a very well-known telecommunications corporation, British Telecom. And I worked as a call center advisor, stroke sub manager. And I didn't really like that job. I joined BT in 1999. So many years ago.
That's a long time, yeah.
Yeah, and I thought I'd be there for 2 years and then I'll go. But I stayed. I got complacent, and for what I was doing, the money was good, etc., etc. And so I stayed there for 14 years. But during that time, more towards coming on to 12 years, 13 years of me being there, I kind of sensed that I was being wasted. And there was a voice we all have this voice, but we don't listen to it. There was a voice inside of me saying that you're much better than what you're doing, and you need to be doing a lot more. You're wasted here. You need to get out. And that voice started getting louder and louder and louder. And I never really understood what that was until it got to a point where I thought, you know what? I've been here for 14 years. Another 14 years can fly by and I'll still be stuck here. And I was working with people who are almost part of the furniture, been working in the business for 30 years, 40 years. And I thought, I've got no life here. And for anybody who's worked in a call center, you know that you're controlled. Your time is not your time. Your holiday is not your time. You've got to ask for it off, all of this. And I thought, I don't want to be controlled anymore. I want to be free. And if I've got to be free, I've got to be me. And if I've got to be me, I need to know who me is, right? So I left the job, but before I left, going back to my radio show, because I was doing the 2 jobs, I interviewed a music producer on my show. And he spoke to me about The Secret. He was saying to me, have you seen The Secret? And I was like, no. And he's like, you really, really need to watch this. And I was like, okay, what is it? And I kind of knew what it was. It was a documentary. It came out in 2006, I believe it was, or 2007. And the book came out as well. So for those of you who've read the book, you know, you're very, very, you understand what that's all about. Now, prior to The Secret coming out, I was following people in the personal development industry. I bought into a lot of programs. I used to listen to a lot of audios, read a lot of books, but nothing significant was happening in my life. And those people who know me, they thought, well, okay, you work for radio, and I've been fortunate to work for some big radio stations, including BBC. And having your own show on there was just great. And I was meeting a lot of celebs and all that kind of stuff. So people who are looking at me thinking from the outside, your life is great. You know, what's going on with you? So why are you feeling so like you're unworthy and you need to change your life? You know, what's going on? So that's what was the external, but the internal was completely different, right? So I thought, well, when The Secret came out, I thought, I'm not watching this because no big change is happening for me. It's all load of mumbo jumbo. But this guy, this music presenter, a producer that I was interviewing, he was persistent that I watch it. So one day I did watch it. And if you've seen The Secret, the documentary, there's so many motivational speakers on there. But there was one person that really stood out for me, and that was Bob Proctor. And he started talking about the mind. He started talking about paradigms. And that was really the missing piece for me that I needed to put together to really achieve what I wanted to achieve later on in life. So there and then I kind of said, I'm going to work with this guy, I'm going to meet him, and I'm going to work with this guy. I didn't know how. All I knew was I'm going to do this. And that was in November 2013. So fast forward to August 2014, that's when I met him. So I left my BT job. I quit the job totally. Parents were like, what are you doing? Who's going to pay you this type of money, etc., as parents do, because they were worried. Your financial commitments, blah, blah, blah. You're going to the other side of the world, the Atlantic. I was going to Canada to meet him. You know, you don't even know who this guy is. What if he's a con artist? All that started flowing through. These are their paradigms, right? So I thought, it doesn't matter. I'm going to do this, and I will do it. And that's how my journey began, in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And I've never looked back since.
It's interesting. There's quite a few points that you pulled up through that little sort of bio. First, it's when you were in BT. So when you were there, it was only spent to be for a short period of time, and as all humans, we fall into sort of like a comfort zone which we don't even know we're in until, you know, we feel that maybe we need to start doing something about this. And like you said, 2 years can go to 14 years without even us thinking. And even now, time just seems to be getting faster and faster and faster, right? And the years seem like months as opposed to years. So unless we make a decision and we say this has to change, I don't think anything does, because we never make the time, because time's not going to happen. We have to make the time, right? And then, you know, it's funny how another thing you said is how other people could see something in you that you couldn't see in yourself. And so many of the conversations I've had recently is about that. Is you could be doing so much more, and you know, I think in you know, we all have an intuition, and we all know that we can be and we should be doing more. But there's something that keeps us without making those decisions. It may be sort of our environment, security, safety, fear, whatever it is that sort of may hold us in a position to not move. And I think having people around us and having conversations with people around us that then say, actually, we can, first of all, not just break this, but we can actually create a life that we believe we should have and we are worthy of having, right? But unless we have that environment built up around us, that's not just people, but it's information, it's the things we watch, it's the things we hear, and it's the noises that fill our brain, which make us believe something is possible, right? There's so much of fear that can hold us back in a situation where people don't want us to move forward. The environment, the media doesn't want us to progress and be better versions of ourselves, because that doesn't serve them, right? So I know you work with a lot of people in transformation. So what kind of advice can you give in sort of short clips which would say, you know, what can we shape about the environment around us that can push us or elevate us to a better version of ourselves, or a better version of ourselves for the people around us? Because that's what it's about, right?
Well, you've got to be very selective of your environment.
Yeah.
Because if you are in a constant negative vibration and around negative people, then you're going to get sucked into their thinking, their way of thinking, and ultimately it is down to your thinking.
Yeah.
So if you feel that you want to do something which is a bit out of box, but somebody in your family is pulling you back, or you're not getting the support that you need from your friends, then you need to move yourself away from that noise.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And that's not easy to do, especially our nearest and dearest. We can't just isolate ourselves from them. But we can choose to accept people's perceptions, because that's what they are, perception, right? So we can choose to take on the information and how much we want to take on, but then ultimately follow our own path. And you've got to have the will to do it. So, and that's exactly how I started my business. You know, what made me believe to do what I'm doing now is the will to do it. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I had no business skills. I've never had a business in my life. I didn't even know what spreadsheets were. You know, I'm not, before I was really scared to do this, but I don't even have my GCSE in maths.
Okay, yeah.
I failed twice.
Yeah.
But we're taught that we've got to have a great education, we've got to have a degree, we've got to have a good job and all of that. But it's just proof to me by myself and then studying other successful people that you don't, and I'm not against education, but you don't need to have all these degrees coming off your business card to be successful. And then since we're on the topic of success, what is success?
Yeah, yeah.
People define it in different ways, but I love the way that Nightingale put it: success is the progressive realization of a worthy idea. And that's exactly what it is. It's your journey. Your goal is there. It's your journey, and it's the person that you become. It's not really about achieving your goal, whatever that goal is. Big house, fancy car, loads of money in the bank. That's not success. Success is not measured by your material goods that you have, or the house you live in, the car you drive, or even the money that you've got in your bank. But success is the person you become. It's the journey that you go on, because as soon as you've reached that goal, you can have a bigger goal. Yeah.
And right? It's you know, you talked about metric of success. So, you know, metric of success in the Western community or Western society seems to be money, right? So money seems to be the outward expression of someone doing well. But a lot of the times we don't know what's behind that mask, because generally it is a mask when it has to be veneered with, you know, the big things around you, rather than saying, actually, the person I've become on this journey to become this, you know, whatever it is that you want to be, doesn't need to be identified by those things. For me, metric of wealth is identified by time. And what I mean by that is when someone has can use their time in exactly the way they choose to. So they're not pulled about by anyone or any situation like work or pleasure, or where they say, you know, I'm going to spend the next 3 months because I want to start reading for a bit, or I want to spend the next year taking time off and spending it with my child that I've just had. To me, that's true wealth, because they've shaped their life so that they can have a life that, you know, serves them and makes them the best version of themselves. And when someone does something like it's like Minesh, so my brother, he took a year off when Jaden was born and when his young girl was born. And to me, that was a complete eye-opener. And so I was like, wow, you have made all the right decisions for you, that you are able to do this without a second thought. And, you know, I identify with that, because I've been so caught up in the money game for so long that it's only when I reached a situation when I was broken, that I realized that this game doesn't work for me. You know, this society's version of self, my health and my mind over the last 8 to 10 years, that I've seen the strongest version of myself come out this side. And the importance of life to me is this now. It's about the relationship, the bonds, the community, and being the best I can, so I can be the best for them. Not just for me, but for them as well. What in terms of how you you operate in a certain environment. So you deal with a lot of people right now, and you deal with different people in terms of the way you have conversations and the way you live your life. In terms of how things are important to you, in the way you set your life up, what are those things and how did that come about? Because obviously it's not always been like that. You had to decide some years ago that you wanted your life to be in a certain way. So what decision did you make before today to give you the life you have today?
I decided that I had to change the way I was thinking first about anything, whether how I live my life, what I want from my life, how much money I want to earn, all of that. I had to think about what lifestyle is it that I want to live. And I had to set in some parameters around that. I had to change certain habits, right? Because we're creatures of habits. So in order to achieve something, we need to change our way of doing certain things. We've got to do things in a certain way. So I started changing little things in my life so that I could start becoming, I guess, more ready to accept and achieve everything else that I wanted. Now, have I fully got there? No, I don't think anybody 100% gets to that top point, because there isn't a top point.
That's right.
That's right. But I'm pretty much, I would say 70-80% there. Right. But it is really about discipline. It's about adapting certain habits, reevaluating yourself and your beliefs as well. And I looked at my beliefs and certain things around that, and things that were kind of instilled in me when I was a child growing up. I had to change that because those beliefs didn't sit in with me. They weren't my beliefs, they were other people's beliefs. And if you reevaluate your own beliefs, you will see that 90% of those beliefs you've got, they're not even your own. They've been passed on from generation to generation. So look at your beliefs, look at what you have belief around family, friends, money, business, work, all of that, that's important to you, and then start adapting and changing them to the way you want in terms of the lifestyle you want to live.
And something you said there just now was where you have to change your beliefs, because a lot of these have been sort of inbred into you from the previous generation. I will never knock or say anything derogatory towards my parents' generation, because what they've done has been immense. To come to a country where they're not wanted and face so many difficulties and hurdles, and they came here and they made a success to give us the life and the choices and the options we have. I've always said we stand on the shoulder of giants, and that's the way I see it. Now, what I now choose to do is a process of unlearning as well. So it's not just learning, it's unlearning. So taking out my backpack the things that don't serve me anymore, the things that have been fed to me, which by people that were only had my best interest at that time. But I believe that life has now moved on, and we need to update how we think as well. And certain things don't serve us anymore. It's like the relationships I have with my dad. There's certain conversations I could never have with him. Things like sex, relationship, drugs, things like this. You could, because it's not in their reality. So therefore, when we sort of come to face it, we have to work our own way out. So now, when I have conversation with my kids, it's a different conversation completely. There is nothing that is out of bounds. There is no taboo subject in my head, because there's nothing that I've not seen which surprises me anymore. And I'm so glad that I've had a life like that they can have a life even more choice than we've had, to try and then move forward in the way they want to. I see them as a generation which are, they've grown up with technology. We sort of were born without technology, and I'm so glad that we grew organically, as opposed to sort of like on steroids and fertilizer, which the kids seem to be growing up on these days. We were allowed to grow up sort of slowly and learn and fall over and stand up, fall over and stand up slowly. And that shaped us who we are. It seems like now my son is 9 years old, and he can do so much that I could never do as a 9-year-old. Some parts are good, some parts are not so good. And I think that shaping that brain in their mind is my job as a parent, is just trying to do that. So coming back to the education, which we talked about earlier, to me, the education system seems to be broken. It doesn't seem to be adapting to the way we live our lives now. Everything has moved on, everything has progressed, technological. The way we live our lives now is almost unrecognizable to how we grew up, right? So why do you think the education system has not moved on, and what do you think that there needs to be changed, or is it just too deep to change?
I don't think it's too deep to change. I think the education system is changing very, 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 very slowly.
Yeah, yeah.
Things like what I don't like this word, but they call it mindfulness. I mean, what is mindfulness? I mean, it's the wrong word that they use, the wrong term, but hey, they use that.
Yeah.
And they're introducing yoga, so they're introducing a different style of I guess they're bringing it into their curriculum as well now, most schools. So they're bringing that in, but it's, again, very, very, very slow. Okay. But I think what education, where it lacks and where the system is broken, it doesn't really teach you how to think, how to earn money, and it doesn't teach you how to make big decisions.
Yeah.
They're the things where education is failing, and they're failing time and time and time and time again.
Yeah, yeah.
That's because the teachers, again, no disrespect to teacher, my sister's a teacher, so no disrespect to them, but the teachers don't know themselves. So you're coming from a place where what does school do? School just fills you with knowledge, right? They're teaching you. You learn something, you study it, and you regurgitate it when you're doing your exams, right?
Yeah.
What you've learned. No. Right? You can pass your exam just like that with flying colors, right? But have you really understood it, and then are you really applying what you're learning in school? Yeah. Things that I'm not saying mathematics is a subject that shouldn't be taught. It should be, but certain subjects within mathematics itself, the broader subjects, unless you're going to become a scientist, who needs algebra? Who needs to know about the Pythagoras theorem? I don't use that in my day-to-day life. Right? It's stuff like that which they need to look at and maybe pick out, and only maybe teach it to those few who want to go down that route.
Yeah, I think in terms of where's the value in memorizing stuff these days? So because that's all the school system seems to be: memorize it, do an exam, have a test, and get a mark. And if we need to know anything, what do? We just tap it on our phone and say, "There's the answer." You want to know the last 10 kings of Spain? Google will tell you. The things that seem to be irrelevant now, that's what seems to be being taught. I know it's slowly changing because I have 2 children in the education system, and it is slowly changing, but it seems to be a dinosaur that's going to take a long time to move. And by the time it moves, will life have changed again? And that's, and then unfortunately, it's in this system. I know a lot of people now homeschool. I know obviously everyone is homeschooling right now, so even us non-teachers are homeschooling right now. But it's nice to say, actually, schooling is one thing, but there's so many other things that are important in terms of the conversations I have with the children. There are other things we do, like we go for walks, we play outside, we talk about things, they do video and they do watch things that I think are so much more helpful for life. We talk about money, we talk about saving, we talk about investing, and these are things that I wish they did teach at an early age, because I got into a lot of trouble with money because not being able to use it effectively to invest in myself, but also using in a way which I didn't understand, an asset and a liability and things that are not going to make us money and things that are, and investing it in the right way for your future. And I think these are so important because they can almost make or break a person. And money is, the way I see money now, is just an energy. It's an energy to shape our lives the way we believe we can be the best person. It's not the reason we do something, it's a byproduct of what we do. And if we are a good, if we use our energy in the right way and be the best person we can, money will come anyway. That's, irrespective. So, talking about money, there was, we talked about Bob Proctor. So Bob Proctor is someone that you've sort of learned a lot under. You've met the guy personally, and you talked about The Secret and someone giving it to you and telling you to read it. My story almost more is yours, because my sister-in-law, so Versh's sister, sent me that book and she goes, "Bab, read this, you'll like this." And at that point, I was not in the mind space at all. I was going through quite a tough time. And she goes, "Read this and see how this sort of serves you." because it served me well, that's what got me on the journey of change in terms of understanding my mind and thinking about all the things that I can attract. So can you tell us a little bit about the time sort of you spent with Bob Proctor and how it sort of served you to what you do now as well?
Well, it's an ongoing thing. It's not like I just met.
Yeah. But obviously it started from there, right?
Yeah. So it started in August 2014. He asked me what I wanted, not in a rude way, but I told him a bit about myself. I had a 15-minute conversation. I decided he offered a program to me to do. I did it. I started seeing the results, and then I decided to become a consultant within his organization. So 6 years on, I now work within his organization as a consultant. We meet up 3 times a year, and I continue to get mentored by him. So that's how my journey began. And I've had various other mentors throughout as well, but he's my main mentor. And I think having a mentor is really, really important, because you can't do it on your own, right? It's really, really naive to think that you can achieve whatever it is that you want to achieve on your own. And whilst we're on that topic, the other thing that I really want to kind of instill in people is that if you don't have a belief in you, borrow somebody else's belief. Find yourself a mentor who can actually demonstrate to you by results how to achieve what it is that you want to achieve. Because investing in you and your personal development is key to getting to where you want to get to. And people they rather spend that money on holidays, which is just a moment of happiness, right? But this is investing in you, or building their body up. But how about your mind is a mental muscle, and mind is the most powerful gift that we have been gifted with as human beings. And as far as we're concerned, we're part of the animal kingdom, but that's what separates us from the animal kingdom, the mind, right? Animals don't have a mind, right? We have a mind, and that mind is so powerful. If you can understand how your mind works, if you can understand who you really are, that's another thing. And we're getting a bit deep here, but you're not your name. If you don't like your name, you can change your name by default. You're not your tags that you've been given, right? Who are you? You're not the body that you live in, because as soon as your time's up, you're going to move out of that body. So who really are you? Understand that first, and then you'll start to achieve everything that it is that you want to achieve through a steady progress and through implementing what you're learning. And studying is key here. Not just reading a book. Anybody can read a book and tell you a little bit about it, but you've got to study certain books and certain things to get you to where you want to get to. I think that's really, really important. We were speaking about education as well. The other thing, as I say, I mentioned it, school doesn't teach you how to earn money, but nor does any other institute, i.e. you could have a degree in economics and still not know how to earn money. And I say that because I had a client who had a degree in economics, yet she was broke, right? So you can learn all this information. That's all you're doing. You're just learning it, right? You're gathering knowledge, but then what are you doing with that knowledge?
And and it's when you talk to a couple of things you picked out there, using your money. So if you have a mindset which is a scarcity mindset, so I know subconsciously or consciously you can have a scarcity mindset where you believe things are not enough and there's never going to be enough, and then you go into sort of like a security mindset, which is you just try and hold on to what you have, as opposed to saying, everything is possible, the universe will provide, and I just have to decide. And when you decide, you make a choice, and when you make a choice, you move your life in that direction, right? So if someone is in that mindset, because we're in a situation now, we're in an unprecedented situation where there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of worry about what the outcomes for this are. Everyone knows there's not going to be the normal we had 2 months ago. The new normal is whatever's going to come out the other side of this, right? And we as humans have the greatest ability to adapt to our environment and our situation, and I think people forget that we as a human race are only here because of our ability to adapt to our environment, constantly adapt and learn and grow, right? So what kind of sort of little bits of advice are the people that are watching that are maybe going through quite stressful and a fear time where they are, they're fearing the unknown, they're not sure what's going to happen, and they don't know how their life's going to pan out. For those, what would you say just to try and ease the situation, make them think in a little bit of a different way?
It's really easy to think about what we don't want. Because again, we need to think that way, aren't we? Right? Give you an example. You could go for a job interview. First thing you're going to think, shit, what if I don't get it? Excuse me.
No, that's no problem at all. No problem at all.
What if I don't get it?
Yeah.
Or you go to the mortgage lender. You want a mortgage. You're buying your first house. What if I don't get them? What if my mortgage don't pass?
Yeah.
So why are we thinking about what we don't want? How about we start thinking about what we do want and put all our energy into what we want?
Yeah.
Because we've been conditioned to think about what we don't want, right? And then we get upset because we didn't get it. Well, we didn't get it because we thought about it in a negative way. So coming back to the situation right now, and I think regardless of what's happening, we have got a choice to think what we want to accept and choose what we want to accept. I'm not saying ignore what's going on, right? There is a virus out there. It is a deadly virus. We've had a family member who passed away from it on my husband's side. So it's there. We don't ignore it. But then do we want to bombard ourselves with the news that's floating through every single day? Do you want to be watching the news every single day and be absorbed by the repetition of that information? Because at the end of the day, that's how scarcity and that's how fear and all of that comes in, because you're constantly putting yourself out there in a vulnerable environment to listen to the negative news. And the main thing I will say is do not switch the news on first thing in the morning, because your subconscious is most active and alert at that time. And last thing at night, don't watch the news. Take in what the experts are saying, and only take in the experts, I would say, from World Health Organization. Don't even look at anybody else, because they're just presenters who are presenting information to you. Do you really want to believe what they're saying? Yeah. So take in what you want from that, and then go about your day. Don't get so consumed and absorbed by this information, because that is what's causing the scarcity. That is what's causing the panic buying. Right? There's no need for any of that. But because the media was scaring everybody, they went out and panic bought. That's why we've got shortness of everything, groceries, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Get yourself away from the fear. Put your mind into something that you enjoy. Start doing things that make you happy.
Yeah.
It's a situation that we can't do anything about. Ask yourself, can I do anything about it? And the answer is no. Right? So harvest the good, right? And forgive the rest. It's simple as that.
Yeah. And my belief has always been, you can't control what's going on outside you. You can only control yourself and your reaction to things, right? And your actions is in your hands. What you choose to listen to and take in is your choice, irrespective of what anyone tells you. And I think I went on a course about 6 or 7 years ago, and this is when he said, he talked about news, and he said, the first thing you want to do is stop watching the news, because it really is not serving you. Okay, because if it's that important, someone will tell you, and it is so true. Like someone will mention something if it's that important. A lot of the time, it's so not important to your world, your reality. Because for me, it's not the whole world; it's your world. So it's the people around you and your environment, and how you are the best within that. The rest of the world can look after itself after a while, right? So if we then use the energy and the mindsets that we have to apply, first of all, common sense. I know common sense is not so common these days, but apply a bit of common sense to say, actually, how much do I actually really need to listen to? First of all, this opinion, because that's all it is an opinion that's been shared with me. What's behind that opinion? Because a lot of the time there's powers to be that are shaping opinions for, something that we probably are never going to know. And then when we look back in hindsight in 5 years' time, we'll look back and say, actually, now I can see some reality here. But at the time, because we were sort of neck deep in the shit, we don't actually know, because we're just trying to survive at that time, right? And it's that perspective that I think we need to keep all the time, to say, actually, thank you for your opinion, but I choose not to be emotively involved in it. I don't mind having it. I don't mind, being aware of it. But I'm not going to shape my life or change my attitude or my viewpoint because I don't think it's going to serve me or anyone around me. And I found that the more conversations, like yourself, like me, like anyone around us, the more conversation we can keep having like this, eventually the rhetoric will change. Like you said earlier, the noise in your environment changes, right? And then you start watching and listening to the things that do serve you. Because it is all out there, like Alpha, it's all out there. You just have to tune into the right frequencies, right? It's not just the frequencies in your mind that tells you, there's certain blockages, there's certain things that are not being released, but it's actually, if I want to see fear, I will see it. Or if I want to see joy, I will see it. I just have to choose and be that yourself first. So if you want to be happy, be happy yourself first, and happiness you will see. Just likewise, if you want to be fearful yourself, all you're going to see is fear, right?
Yeah, and I just want to add to that since we're talking about the mind, and this is true, is because last week was mental health awareness, right?
Yeah.
And I know there's people out there who this is really, really upsetting them, and they're finding this a real struggle. People who've got mental health issues here. But again, I think the way to keep your mind focused is really think about the good that you want for you and your family.
Yeah.
And also, you've got to understand this is why I say study the mind and try and understand what your mind is all about, because you've got two parts to your mind. Psychologists and psychiatrists may say there's more, there is, but we only use the conscious and the subconscious part. Mm-hmm. So your conscious is what you see, hear, taste, touch, and smell through your five senses. So what you're seeing on TV, what you're reading, what you're hearing on radio, all of that, your environment, people that you're surrounded by. Now your conscious mind can choose or reject. It can accept or reject any bit of information, right? Your subconscious mind can only accept. So if you tell your subconscious a lie long enough, it will accept it, right? So that's how you have to understand what your mind is and how powerful it is. So choose your thoughts carefully. And it's not just those thoughts that you say out aloud, it's those unseen thoughts that are going on inside of you that play a big, big part in all of this. So if you can control that, control your environment, and that takes time, then you're pretty much halfway there.
Yeah. Yes. Now, if we go back to something, earlier in your early days, so I'm going to lighten the conversation a little bit. So you were a presenter on BBC. So I think, was it Asian Network, Leicester? You can talk about this, but they must be fun time for you, right? Being in a studio, talking to lots of people from, all around the world, different shapes, different people from different backgrounds, etc. So what kind of fun was that? And also, how did you get into that? Because a lot of people see, like, I want to present, I want to do these things. I know you were working at BT at the time and you were presenting, so it's sort of like a twin role you had. But to even do that at that time took a different way of thinking, So if you can just talk about that sort of time of your life a little bit.
Yeah, I started actually in radio. My career started in 1993. Long time. Wow. So I started off at BBC Radio Leicester.
Yeah.
And I started off as, in those days, the BBC were allowed to have competition. So I started off as a phone person, answering the telephone calls and making the rest of the presenters. So I started really ground level. And I knew from a very young age, from the age of 8 to 9 years that I wanted to be a radio presenter. And this, again, is where everything comes in terms of what I teach now, the law of attraction. Although I was what you call an unconscious competent, I didn't know that this is how I made it happen.
Yeah.
Anything that happens in your life, we create it, right? Now, that's a hard pill to swallow for a lot of people because they said, I never asked for the bad to come through your thoughts, you did, right? But that can be for another podcast. But and I used to listen to the radios, and we were subjected to a lot of music in our household from a very, very young age. So I always knew that I wanted to be a radio presenter, and so I used to pretend doing a radio show in my bedroom, right? And as soon as somebody came upstairs, I would pretend as I was doing something else. The shyness was there as well. So it was very much like, I'm a shy person, for those who know me really. How can you go out and become a radio presenter? But it was a real passion that I had. And one day I knew that I would do it. So that's how it all started. I started off at Radio Leicester, was a tea lady stroke phone person.
Mm-hmm.
And then I expressed my interest that actually I want to get my voice on radio. And that's what I really wanted to do. So they sent me on a few courses, etc., etc. And that's how I progressed. And then I left that, took a year out or so, and then I was approached by Sabras Radio, which is Leicester based. I was offered the Saturday breakfast show there, had to do a demo tape, etc. That got accepted, so did breakfast. Then I was given a Sunday evening show, and then I went on to do a flagship breakfast show. For 14 years, I did that Monday to Friday. So at that time, when I was doing that breakfast show, I was also working at BT, so I was holding down 2 jobs there, right? And then I decided to leave Sabras because I was approached by BBC Radio Nottingham, and I was offered a Sunday evening show there. So that's how the career all started. But in a nutshell, I knew from day one I wanted to be a radio presenter. That was the passion and desire that I had.
And you know, I know your brother quite well, obviously. So just so people that don't know, so Alpa is Alpa's twin brother. So that's another unique situation there. So he's my brother-in-law, so he's married to my sister. And one thing both of you have is this creative streak, you know, in terms of sort of like the artistic side of things. So where do you think that came from in terms of the creativity? Because both of you have got it, because he's obviously like a DJ and stuff as well, and then you sort of into music and that. Where do you think that came from?
Well, we've all got creativity. It's
more specifically about the music, sort of like the entertainment side of things.
So the interest in music is, I guess what you're asking is, that comes from my dad.
Okay.
Dad, he loved his Indian music, his Bollywood stuff. He used to work in HMV, or was it the gramophone company?
Yeah.
So he used to package records and things like that. And he was also, back in the day, my dad was a singer. Mm-hmm. So they used to have a group that they used to go around and tour and sing. So music was very, very much in our family anyway, from a very, very young age. Mm-hmm. And my nana, my mom's dad, he was a great tabla player. So he used to play with the greats like Zakir Hussain and all those lot. So music has always been there. The passion has always been there. So I guess that you can say is in the genes.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, for, you know, anyone listening, I've always said that everyone has something within them. Everyone has a skill. Everyone has something that they may enjoy more than someone else. They may do better, or they may take the knowledge in without even knowing that they're actually quite good at it. And if there is something, you know, when people say, I want to start something on my own, I want to sort of tread my own path, I want to sort of set my own business, whatever the words are. I've always said, is there something that you enjoy so much that you wouldn't mind just helping someone else do that? And if you don't mind helping someone else do that, that essentially is what a business is, right? It's just you helping another person, or a lot of people, with something that you have a better understanding of, to help them improve what either they don't want to do, they choose not to do, or they just want someone else to come in and do it for them. And that's how I believe that we as a human, symbiotic system, this universe is symbiotic, we are all cells within that. We need to just utilize what not everyone is designed to be a doctor or a solicitor or a football player, whatever it is. We need people that cut grass well. We need people that can lay your roof with passion. And that's how the world works. And I know you're very strong on that, in moving people into an area which they have strength, so that they can be strong for not just for themselves, but for the people around them. So is that the kind of sort of things that you talk about with the people that come to you for, coaching, that come for you advice?
Yeah, the first thing I'll ask them, it's the same question that I got asked by Bob, is what do you want? What do you really, really want? And it's such a simple question. but it's not an easy question to answer,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to tap into what it is that you really, really want. And everybody has got a purpose. There's
Mm-hmm.
not a person on this planet that doesn't have a purpose. You've got to understand what your purpose is, what your vision is, what your goal is.
Mm-hmm.
Those things. And once you can understand that, then you can move forward. So you've got to, and if we're talking about business, there's a lot of people out there who start businesses because they're running after the money.
Yeah.
Oh, there's that, I will do it. Sooner or later, the business falls flat on their face, right? Because the desire is not there anymore. They were chasing the money, and now they can't be bothered to wake up at 5 a.m. to go out and do something which is required for their business, because the desire was never there. The desire was for the money, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't the money. If you provide great service, we're all here to do God's work. What's God's work? Providing service,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Provide greater service, the money will come.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes.
Get what you're passionate about, what you love. If you're going to start a business, think about what is it that you love doing. How would you like to spend your days?
Yeah.
Yeah? And then get into that, and the money will always come from it.
Yeah. So, we talked about sort of an outward purpose and the way we show up in the world and be the best versions of ourselves. So is there anything that people don't know about you that you're proud of?
Yeah, I wouldn't use the word proud, but I would say I'm humbled by it.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with Noel Edmonds, and I helped him set up his own radio station,
Mm-hmm.
online radio station, and
Yeah.
this 3 years ago.
Okay.
And even that just happened. This is the power of the universe.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to work with him for about 3 months to 4 months and help him set up his first online radio station. So that's something that I don't think many people know, and it's not something that I talk about a lot. But since you've asked,
There you go. Perfect. And is there, you've grown so much as a person, there's so many things within your life, things that have happened and things that have changed that allow you to be the version that we see now sitting here talking to me. So moving forward from there, is there any skills that you still need to master, grow, or learn to make, the next version of yourself?
Definitely. It never stops, does it?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I've made it yet, and I don't think I'll have ever made it.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always something else, there's something else, there's something else. But I think for me, it's just, I just want to keep growing. I just want to get better and better and better at what I do.
Mm-hmm. And which ways do you believe you need to sort of train yourself to do that? What kind of things do you need to do yet still?
Knowledge. It really is just studying my information. What is it that I teach people? Getting better at that, becoming a master at that, and that's how you're going to become irreplaceable, right? And that.
And if you're learning and you're taking it in, there's one thing which is developing in terms of reading and theoretical knowledge, and then applying that so it becomes life knowledge, right? So living and walking your truth. And once you start doing that, which I've seen, is then it's within you, it's part of your fingerprint, it's part of your DNA, right? And then it's easy to, when someone asks you about something, because you've lived it, it's your truth. It's not something that you've just read in a book. You've said, okay, I've read this, I understand this, but now I'm going to live this by applying it in my life somehow. Yeah. And I think it's having the confidence, like I said, it's having the confidence and the ability to say, I want to take these concepts and try and instill them in me, which is a lot of the time it can be uncomfortable because it goes against our own common nature, what we believe is our nature. I know there is no nature, we're always growing, but it's, so what are the things that, so if someone's listening to this and they're saying, I would like to become a better version of myself by maybe sort of reading more or going to bed earlier or drinking more water or training or exercising, what are the blocks that they need to overcome to make this not just something they do consciously, but something they do unconsciously, so it becomes a lifestyle or a habit as opposed to something they have to think of doing?
Well, the only way it can happen naturally is through repetition.
Mm-hmm.
Your bad habits came through repetition.
Yeah.
You got comfortable with it, so it's now a way of life. But if you can get comfortable in being uncomfortable, and that's the secret really, right, and carry on doing it, so you've got to pick 1 or 2 habits at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the paradigm, which we haven't got time to talk about right now, but I certainly would like to speak to people about what paradigms are so they understand it. It's basically your habitual beliefs and your way of living. It's a set of programs. So if you can pick one or two habits that you don't like and you want to improve, just start with the small ones. It might just be just waking up an hour earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not waking up. What are you doing with that time? You know, I hear a lot of people say there's not enough hours in the day. Well, actually, we've all got the same hours, 24 hours, right? I don't get any more than you. You don't get any less than me.
Yeah.
And people, especially big corporations, they bang on about time management. There's no such thing as time management. We can't manage time. Like, how crazy is that, right? But we can certainly manage our activities.
Yeah.
What are you doing with time? Yeah. To prioritize your day.
Yeah. And the exercise I did a few years ago, which was really interesting to me, because I was in that mindset as well, thinking I just have no time. One thing I did was I spreadsheet my time. It sounds really sad, this, right? But I spreadsheet my time. So for a week, every hour, I sort of ended there. I said, what did I do during this time? So what time did I get up? What did I do first hour, second hour? And then I realized there was some repeating times that sort of like between 8 and 9 and between 6 and 7 where I was just padding them out, really. I wasn't really, being productive. It was just, where you just sort of whatever. And I thought, if I want to learn, so I wanted to learn play the piano, and I wanted to learn video editing. So there were the two things that interested me that I wasn't making time for. No, I didn't have time. I just wasn't making time for. Once I saw this, I thought, okay, so in the morning, that 1 hour, I can learn a little bit about video editing. And I only have 1 hour, so I'm going to literally do an hour, close the book until next day. And then in the evening, I can start practicing piano and then sort of going for lessons. And it's so funny that just by those two little things that I found, video editing's helped me now with the stuff that I'm doing. I never knew it would even evolve into this 3 years ago. But the piano, 3 years on, I'm on grade 3 right now. And that is literally from half an hour a day, and I made it, it was a must. It wasn't, I choose it or maybe it'll happen. It became a must. And when it becomes a must, and like you said, you just repeat it daily, then it's almost like everything else fit around it that has sort of become important to me, And I think just doing that little exercise really helped me. So if anyone out there wants to do that, it is quite sad. Is there anything you can add to that, Alpa?
Because what you've done is you're disciplining yourself, and that is so crucial to anything that you want to achieve. Doesn't matter how big or small it is.
Yeah.
You're giving yourself a command and you're following it. That's what it is, right? You're really passionate about something, you're gonna do whatever it takes. If it's half an hour of your day that you're spending on social media and then thinking, actually, I'll need to spend on learning a piano, that is what you need to do, because that's the burning desire inside of you. If there's no burning desire, you're not going to be motivated to do anything.
And another thing that sort of really hit home to me when someone said to me, they say, you think you don't have time, okay? No one has time. You have to make time, right? You choose to spend stuff. He goes, at the start of the day, show me every diary entry where it shows go to the toilet. You don't write that down, but when it's there, when you have to go, suddenly you have time to go to the toilet, right? It's not in my to-do list, so I'm not going to do it. No. You at that moment have to go, right? So because of that, you realize that actually everything is possible. You just have to decide, right?
It's funny you say that, because there's some people who are probably watching this and they're probably saying it themselves. They'll say, I haven't even got time to go to the toilet. And what? The one tip I will give is just wake up 1 hour early.
Yeah.
And you will see how much time you've got to fit in different things.
And to create that hour, you go to bed earlier, right? Because sleep again is so important to our neural network. And that was one of the first things that I did sort of all those years ago, was actually started making it a must that by 10 o'clock I have to be in bed and almost asleep. Before that, it was sort of any time. It was like up to midnight, 1 o'clock, I'd be just doing stuff, and I was just working, doing something. I'm like, I have to, if I want to start getting up early, I need to go to bed. And you can't do the 1 o'clock in the morning, then get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You can, probably, but it'll break you, because you need sleep as well. So that restful time where you go to sleep earlier, wake up earlier, but that time in the morning, especially because I have kids, it became me time. So that time between 5 and 7 became me time. It's how I invest in myself. So I got up, drank water, trained, exercised, I moved my state. You made lunch for both of us, so I looked after that. Did a bit of meditation, did a bit of reading, and then the kids got up. And that time with myself made sure, doing that first thing in the morning, made sure I was as strong as I could be. So no matter what happened in the day, I knew I was strong. And another thing I decided was, a few years ago, was I've stopped switching my phone on until I leave the house. So rather than switching on first thing in the morning, it was until I leave the house, which is normally 9:30. Obviously before lockdown, it was 9:30. Now after 9:30 is when I first switch my phone on, because I don't want to be pulled away from this thing that I'm trying to create the strength within me by these pings and dings and things that are really not important. If it was important, people have my landline and they will ring that, or they have my wife's number if it was really that important. I've never had a call, and I've never had a call that said this, shit's hit the fan, something you need to sort out. And then I realized that just that little one thing, it sounds little, but it's huge obviously to a lot of people, because a lot of people just get up and start, flicking and things.
Ever is reaching out for your phone. Take your phone away from your bedside.
Yeah, even outside your room, charge it outside the room, right?
Away, because that is the worst deterrent for you. Talking of sleep, I would say try and get yourself, this is not for everyone, but you can now since we're in lockdown, is try and get 15 to 20 minutes power nap in the afternoon.
I've heard that.
Amazing for what it does for your creativity, what it does for your thinking, and just your productivity.
Yeah.
That's something you have to implement in your day. Now there's no excuse. Okay, those people who go back to work later, that's fine, but try and fit in a 15-20 minute power nap.
Shall I tell you where that is an excuse, Alpa? When you have two kids doing your head in. They won't let you sleep. What do you mean you're going to sleep? I've got this to do. So, you're in a fortunate situation. You can do that. But yeah, no, I agree. I've heard that as well, and I would, when if we go away, like on holidays and stuff like that, we do that. Because when it gets really hot in the afternoon, when you're in a country where it's really hot, that siesta thing makes so much sense. Because obviously it's too hot to go out, but when you just sort of lie down and just take it easy in the middle of the afternoon, it just sets the whole evening up well as well, I think. And I've never done it in a way where I've actually had a nap and stuff. But I know I would really like to build that into my life at some point. So it's consciously in there. And thank you for reminding me again. I will make a note that it has to become a must.
Study some of the successful people, not some, most of the successful people. That's all they do. They'll take a 15-minute break and go to sleep.
Yeah. In what meditation did for me, and what being sort of alone with yourself. I heard a saying somewhere, I can't remember the exact way it goes, but it's like man's biggest fear is sitting alone with his thoughts, like silently with his thoughts. And I can see how that can be if you have no control on what's going on up there, and I get the mental health struggle. I would never knock anyone in that situation, because I get it. I've been in that situation where I've been in turmoil and things have just been going around in my head. It was probably depression, but I never clinically was depressed. But I knew that life was not in a good state. And the only way I could get out of this was by understanding myself, understanding how I ate, understanding how I moved my body, understanding what I put into it, understand what I listened to, what I heard, and literally went through a total immersion of changing everything. And that creates the person you see in front of you today. And that was from first, like you said about how you have the things you listen to. It was from listening first, shutting my mouth and actually listening. Listen to the people out there. There's so much information out there now, right? So, people like Bob Proctor, you've got, Tony Robbins, you've got Les Brown, you've got, anyone who you align with and who you like the words of. Take them in, because a lot of them have lived it. They're not talking from a book, they've lived it, because these guys have grown up in the 60s and the 50s and the 70s. And in those days, you had to live it to learn anything. And people who have lived and tread the path, I think there's so much learning, especially from the old stuff, that we can apply. It's like when you talk about religious texts, you know, I'm not a religious person, I'm more humanitarian. I like to take things from different things, you know. I don't like the sort of concept dogma of religion, but I do like certain concepts which I can take on board, and I say, I can take that in and apply that. I think where it can become toxic is, first of all, where it becomes a must, where you just follow it blindly without questioning, and a lot of people can do that with religion, but also is saying, do I need it all? Or do I just need to take parts of it which serve me, which I can plug in, and that'll help me, and the rest I can say, actually, you know what, it doesn't serve me. It's like when you say, I'm vegan, but is fully being vegan serving you? Or maybe parts of veganism serves you for certain days, and then maybe I need a bit of chicken on the end weekend because that helps me with my training, whatever it is. You know, try not to be dogmatic in your approach to life, because I think we have so much knowledge now, we have so much awareness of everything goes on, that we almost have to say, what's good for me? It doesn't matter what anyone else says to you, what's good for me. The only way you know what's good for you is by living it and by trying it, and not just listening to someone else, but actually doing it for you and say, actually, that doesn't work for me. You might tell me to go to bed for 10 hours, but I know I work well on 7, and that's good, or I work well on 5, or I work well on 9. You know yourself. It's only as you go that, you'll probably agree with me, as we get older, we know ourselves so much better because we've been through so much more, that we can actually say, this serves me well, this doesn't. I'm always in the mindset of growing, but I know I can take that on board, and I know I can leave that, even though it works for other people, for me it doesn't work. And I think it's having that confidence, isn't it? And living your life in that way, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So as we sort of head to the end of the conversation, and I love these conversations, they give me energy in there. I think they say, when two people are talking in the same lane, just the outer ripples that effect from other people just listening, I think can serve a lot of you know, goodness in the world. And I think that's what we need to see, and that's why I started this and having these conversations. So as we reach the end, there's a couple more things I want to go through with you, just so people understand a little bit more about you. Okay, so we've reached the end of your days now. So we're at the end of your life, you know, whatever age you want to get to, in 150 years old, 200 years old, whatever that is. You've lived a long, healthy, strong life. You've done everything you want to do. But now we've come down to the people around you, and you have a pen and a paper. You don't have enough energy to speak, but you can write 3 words. What 3 words have served you in your life? And you hope the practice of those 3 words for other people that are listening will help them on their journey.
Good question. Trust is vitally important. You have to learn to trust people.
Mm-hmm.
Believe in you. Believe in the unseen forces as well.
Yep.
Because they're all things, right? And I think the 3rd word would be visualize. Visualize your life. Visualize how you want to live. Visualize what you want. Visualize your legacy. What do you want to leave behind?
Mm-hmm.
So 3 words: trust, believe, and visualize.
Yeah. And I think that in the last one, you talk about visualizing. There is so much energy in that, putting your attention on something. You know, I actually believe it's the real energy. There's something that when you put your attention on something and say, this is what I want to see, or I want to attract, or whatever it is, words you want to use, that attention has energy, and you're sending that energy out. The problem is, I think, with a lot of people, is we live in almost like where you just let the day happen, as opposed to consciously saying, this is what I want to see. And if we can practice that one thing, like I said, the visualization side, there's so much of our lives that we can shape in the way we want it to be. And it's putting attention on all the things that we want to see. So thank you for that. I fully agree with all 3. Now, I've sourced the mic, and this podcast is called Bigger Than the Hustle, and now you're bigger than the world. So I've sourced a mic which is plugged into 7.58 billion people. Okay, they can all hear you, they will understand you. There's no language barrier. They're all awake, and everyone is waiting for your words. So if I gave you 30 seconds to share a message with the world, what would those 30 seconds be filled with for your message for everyone out there?
Ooh, I'm getting 30 seconds. I don't know if I can sum it up 30 seconds. I've said it before, actually. There is no greater gift than the power of your mind, right? So understand how it works. Understand you. Begin to think, because like I said, people don't think. Most people don't think. They think, right? But they don't. And if you just stopped and listened to people and their conversations, and they would never have said what they said if they were thinking. So really think about what you're thinking and saying, because I love this quote. They say it goes something like this: 2% of the people think, 3% of the people think they think, 95% would rather die than think. Right? It's a quote by George Bernard Shaw, who was the co-founder of the London School of Economics. Okay, so mental activity does not constitute thinking. Think about what you want for you. Think about your life. Think about your family. Think about why you're here. Understand who you really are, because you have infinite potential inside of you. It's locked up here. Bring it to the surface. Yeah. Get a mentor who can demonstrate to you by results how to achieve anything that you want, because there's no limit. Your only limitation is your imagination. Put your imagination out there. Get what you want. You only have one life. Live it to the fullest. That is my message. And I feel so strongly about that because, like you say, I speak to people every single day. And it's that one question I ask: what do you want? And people are like, I don't know. And I don't take that as an answer. And the reason why they don't know is because they've not given it any thought. What they really, really want.
Yeah. I love everything you said there. I think in terms of, you're putting your words out, and words have power, words have energy, and it's the way we communicate as human beings, and words put in the right order from the right person can move mountains. They can move an energy within us. And I think that's the work you're doing. You're doing the work of moving people to being the strongest version of themselves, but creating so much strength within them that they can't come back and go back to a way they were. They've moved forward to the new person or a new version of themselves for not just themselves, but every person around them, and not just people around them now, all the people that are going to be coming around them as well. So I think if we can just have every person we meet, if we can leave them with a little thought or a little smile, then our conversation, our words have hit the right place, and we move them a little bit closer to a little bit of happiness. And I think, that's what we as human beings I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for that. I think if we just let our intuition rule a bit and say what's right and what's not so good for us, irrespective of what anyone else says, let's surround ourselves with people like Alpa that speak to us in a way which makes us think about ourselves. And it's not to help her, it's to help us. And I know Alpa would agree with this, but by helping other people, you're helping yourself as well, right? Because it's feeding you as well, right?
Just to touch on what you said, and this is an interesting thing that you just said, is, if we can leave everybody that we meet with better off than when we first found them, that is the most important thing that you can do.
Yeah.
I call it the impression of increase, leaving everybody with an impression of increase. Yeah. If my words can help somebody right now, I've done my bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And pass it on, because we're all here to invest in ourselves, hopefully. Right? The more you're investing in yourself, the more you can spread that knowledge to other people, and that's what I'm doing. So I'm investing in myself every single moment that I can, so that I can share that with other people.
Yeah, perfect.
It's like you're passing on the torch, the Olympic torch. Look at it. What are you doing? We're here to help. We're here to provide greater service. The more we can help in any which way, and we're not helping to receive anything back.
Yeah.
Anyway, right?
And that happens anyway, doesn't it? So when we give, we probably get back more than what gives out anyway, in terms of the way we fulfill ourselves, the energy we get within ourselves by that moment of just being helpful or being a helping hand or using our words to make someone else's life lighter. I think not just what they're getting, but we get double back almost because of the energy that we feel and the way we live our life. So thank you so much for this conversation. Thank you for your time, Alpa. I know you're a really busy girl, and to spend that time with me, to have this conversation. Hopefully, I always, pray before I start any of these conversations is that hopefully these conversations reach the people that need to hear them and help them in their life somehow. Because then, if it does, then both of our lives have been worth it because we are affecting the world in a positive way. So, on the end, I'm going to hook up Alpa's details on the show notes. I'm sure she's got so much more to say as well. And if you do want to contact her, her contact details will be there. So please get in touch. Is there anything else you want to say, Alpa, before we go?
Yeah, I just want to first of all, just want to thank you, Bhavik, for giving the time and for having this conversation and setting this up. It's great. But really kind of look into this conversation again. And I think the current time is really kind of affecting people. I know that, but the current situation at the moment, there's never been a better time to help more people and provide. There's never been a better time where I've seen where people have actually come together. There's so much goodness that has come out of this whole COVID stuff. And we just got to count ourselves lucky that we're here, we're alive, and honestly, my life itself, the fact that I celebrated my birthday just a few weeks ago, that was something that I was really, really grateful for, that I'm still here. There's a lot of people that are not here, they've passed away because of this. So be grateful that you're waking up every single morning. Be grateful for the fact that you've got eyes to see this world, and be grateful that you've got another day.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So here we end the podcast. Just leave you with a few thoughts. Big energy leads to big thoughts. Big thoughts lead to big ideas. Big ideas lead to big actions, and big actions lead to a big life. So keep thinking big. Until next week, goodbye.
I always say, if you have the confidence, if you have the drive, if you have a dream, you must follow it.